We were playing a Guns N' Roses song while you guys were getting set up. I remember you guys had a whole thing with them, right? James, right? You hated those guys. Was that
I think they pretty much stood for everything we didn't like. The glam, the LA, the everything. That's why I hated them.
Was that
Metallica is a band that conquered the world without compromise. From dingy garages in California to sold-out stadiums across continents, they became the loudest, fastest, and most unrelenting name in heavy metal. But behind their success lies a hidden history, one paved with refusals, conflicts, and broken alliances. Over the decades, Metallica has turned down collaborations, refused tour offers, and even walked away from multi-million-dollar co-headlining deals. Not because they were afraid, but because they were committed to protecting what they built. This is the untold story of 10 bands Metallica refused to tour with. And why? From ego clashes and genre wars to philosophical divides and personal grudges, some decisions were business, others were personal. In the late 1980s, Metallica was on the rise, but not quite at the top. That spot belonged to other giants, Mötley Crüe, Guns N' Roses, and Aerosmith. It was during this era that promoters tried again and again to pair Metallica with mainstream hard rock acts in hopes of building mega stadium bills. But the answer was often the same, no. One of the first and most public rejections was Mötley Crüe. According to multiple sources, a massive tour was proposed in 1987. Metallica would open, Mötley would close. James Hetfield shut it down immediately. "We don't open for circus acts," he allegedly told their management. The disdain was mutual. Nikki Sixx later confirmed, "We thought they were too heavy, too serious, and not fun enough." Then came Aerosmith. In 1993, during the Get a Grip tour, Metallica was offered a co-headlining spot across Europe. But the deal collapsed when Aerosmith's team allegedly demanded top billing and exclusive control over stage design. Lars Ulrich, always outspoken, laughed it off in an interview, saying, "We're not showing up just to play second fiddle to guys still wearing scarves from the 70s. And who could forget the GNR debacle?" Though Metallica did tour with Guns N' Roses in 1992, the experience was so volatile, with riots, late arrivals, and backstage drama, that Hetfield vowed never to repeat it. When talks resurfaced in 2002 for a reunion tour, Metallica declined instantly. "Once was enough," Kirk Hammett later said. "You survive that storm, you don't walk back into it." These early rejections weren't about insecurity. They were about identity. Metallica didn't want to share a stage with anyone whose values didn't align. And if it meant saying no to huge audiences and big money, so be it. Because to them, principle was louder than profit. Metallica didn't just redefine heavy metal, they redefined who belonged in it. Their sound, raw, relentless, uncompromising, was built on a deep-rooted belief that metal was supposed to challenge you, not entertain you like a pop song. So when certain bands flirted too closely with commercialism or failed to meet the sonic standard Metallica had set, the band had no problem walking away. This wasn't snobbery. It was about protecting the very genre they helped shape. One of the earliest examples was Kiss. In the late 90s, when Kiss was mounting yet another reunion tour filled with pyrotechnics and makeup nostalgia, Metallica was offered a lucrative opportunity to co-headline a string of dates. The deal was on the table, but Metallica passed. Why? Because, as Lars once said in a now-archived interview, "We didn't want to be part of a theme park show." Kiss was spectacle. Metallica was substance, and despite both being larger-than-life bands, their philosophies clashed. Then came Limp Bizkit. In the early 2000s, nu metal was surging, and Fred Durst's band had massive radio play. Several promoters suggested Metallica team up with Limp Bizkit for a Legacy meets New Blood stadium tour. But Metallica refused outright. James Hetfield reportedly scoffed, "We don't share stages with karaoke rappers in backward hats." A harsh line, but one that made their stance clear. Metallica saw Limp Bizkit as an act built more on attitude than authenticity. The friction wasn't always personal. Sometimes it was about the music itself. Bands like Bon Jovi and Def Leppard had stadium-filling power, and there were proposals to merge tours in the mid-2000s when Metallica was transitioning into more mainstream success with St. Anger and Beyond. But again, they declined. The reasons? Metallica didn't want to risk being grouped into a glam rock category they'd spent their whole lives tearing down. As Lars Ulrich put it in a 2004 Q&A, there's a line between loud guitars and lip gloss. We stay on our side of that line. And then there was Coldplay. Believe it or not, in 2008, a cross-genre festival-style tour was proposed that would feature Metallica, Coldplay, and Jay-Z, a genre-defying concept meant to unify massive audiences under one ticket. Metallica said no, not because they didn't respect the other artists, but because, as Kirk put it bluntly, it's not our world. We don't want to be the odd ones out surrounded by vibes we can't control. Metallica has always been fiercely protective of their identity. They never wanted to become a band you casually stumbled upon between pop acts. They didn't want to bridge the gap between metal and mainstream. They were the gap, and they intended to keep it that way. Their refusal to tour with bands that didn't fit the Metallica ethos wasn't about arrogance, it was about coherence. Every opening act, every co-headliner, every collaboration needed to feel right, and if it didn't, they walked away. Because for Metallica, the show wasn't just about sound, it was about spirit. And if the other band didn't have it, they didn't deserve the same stage. While Metallica's public image has often been built on intensity, brotherhood and music first, behind the scenes, they've made some of the coldest decisions in modern rock history. Some of the biggest tour offers of the last 30 years never happened, not because of money or schedules, but because of principle. In the late 2000s, one of the most ambitious tour packages ever assembled nearly became reality. Metallica and Iron Maiden, two giants of metal on the same bill. For fans, it was a dream, but according to sources close to both camps, egos got in the way. The deal collapsed over billing disputes. Maiden wanted equal footing. Metallica's team allegedly insisted on full headliner status. Bruce Dickinson later hinted at the breakdown in an interview, saying, "Some people need the whole stage." "That's fine, we'll build our own," Metallica never commented. But the silence said it all. Then came a rumored collaboration tour with Megadeth. Yes, the band formed by Metallica's ex-guitarist Dave Mustaine. The idea floated for years. Fans begged for it. But every time it gained traction, it vanished. Why? Because the old wounds ran deep. Though they did share the stage for the Big Four shows alongside Slayer and Anthrax, a full-scale joint tour between Metallica and Megadeth never materialized. Mustaine himself has gone on record more than once expressing frustration, saying James and Lars were never truly open to a long-term reunion. One insider claimed Hetfield didn't trust Mustaine's volatility. Another said it was too messy to manage. And just like that, millions in ticket sales were left on the table. Because some grudges die slowly. There was also a secretive moment in the early 2010s when Tool was approached to do a co-headlining arena tour with Metallica. While both bands shared massive cult followings, the deal fell apart almost instantly. Why? Creative control. Tool is known for their long, immersive sets and full visual design. Metallica wasn't willing to yield stage time or tone. "We're not cutting Master of Puppets, so someone can play a 12-minute bass interlude," a Metallica stage manager allegedly joked. Maynard James Keenan later said in a podcast that, "Some acts need to dominate everything. That's their right, but it's not for us." The respect was mutual, but the collaboration was impossible. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the bands Metallica refused to tour with, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below your thoughts. Which rejection surprised you the most? We bring you cinematic stories like this every week, the stuff fans whisper about but never really get to hear. The quietest fallout may have been with Avenged Sevenfold. In 2017, the band was opening for Metallica on the Worldwide tour. But midway through the run, tensions allegedly rose when A7X pushed for more set time and autonomy. Lars reportedly wasn't thrilled. Conversations behind the scenes got tense. The band finished their obligations, but they were never invited back. No press releases, no bad blood online. But insiders say it was made clear. Once was enough. Time and again, Metallica has shown they're not afraid to burn bridges if it means keeping control of their narrative. They don't fight loud. They just vanish. The tour never happens. The stage never gets shared. And the fans, left in the dark, are forced to wonder what really happened. But if you listen closely to the silence, they've already told you everything you need to know. Metallica isn't just a band anymore. It's an institution, an empire of sound, legacy, and loyalty. And as the years go by, their decisions become even more calculated. They're no longer just protecting their music. They're protecting what Metallica means. And that often means saying no, even to friends, collaborators, or former idols. One of the most surprising refusals came in the 2020s when discussions surfaced about a Legends of Metal super tour featuring Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, and Judas Priest. It would have been a multi-generational celebration of heavy metal, a stadium-filling global event. But Metallica passed. Publicly, they cited scheduling conflicts. But behind the scenes, insiders whispered something more complicated. Metallica didn't want to be grouped in as nostalgia. They weren't ready to share the spotlight under a banner that suggested the best days were behind them. One tour manager put it simply, they don't want to be remembered. They want to be remembered next year too. And it's not just legends they avoid. In recent years, newer bands like Ghost, Greta Van Fleet, and even Bring Me the Horizon have tried to link up with Metallica for co-headlining festival spots. But again, the band declined. Not because these bands weren't talented, but because they didn't match the tone. Metallica didn't want to become a launchpad for up-and-comers. They didn't want a split identity. As Kirk Hammett once said, "We'll open doors for young bands, but we won't hold the stage for anyone." Perhaps the most emotional refusal, though, was the decision to not reunite with Jason Newsted, their former bassist, for a full tour. While Jason did appear during the 30th anniversary concerts and Big Four shows, hopes of a full-blown reunion tour were dashed when Metallica made it clear it wasn't going to happen. James Hetfield later admitted it was too far in the past. There were no hard feelings, just finality. For a band that's had its share of public breakdowns, from James's battles with addiction to the explosive Some Kind of Monster documentary, Metallica has learned to put peace before publicity. And that sometimes means turning down what the fans think they want, in favor of what the band knows it needs. Metallica's refusal history isn't just a list of missed tours. It's a blueprint of boundaries. They've rejected deals with egomaniacs, sidestepped genre-mismatched acts, and walked away from history-making collaborations, all because they never forgot who they are. They are a band that rose without compromise, and they plan to end the same way. Because for Metallica, every decision is a riff in the legacy. And if a tour doesn't serve the music, the fans, or the message, it never even leaves the garage. In a world of sellouts and staged reunions, Metallica's silence is sometimes their loudest statement. And every time they say no, they're not closing a door. They're sharpening the edge of what they've always stood for, purity and power, and loyalty to the music first.